Providing that experience, which is where, Debora, you talked about sort of the consumer today is searching at every price point from $4 on up. But you have to, as a brand, now provide an experience. Is that not part of the challenge?
It is. The way that we are trying to plan and think about how to go about marketing is like the consumer decision journey, right?
Say that again.
The consumer decision journey, better. So instead of only having the awareness, TV, in the old days, now he's gonna go and evaluate, and he's gonna go and search online a lot to buy a $2, $3 beauty product, which wasn't the case at all a couple of years ago. So that's a new phase that you can probably engage the consumers in the discovery process, and therefore have an experience and create content that you can wrap around your product.
So at that discovery moment, you then realize as a brand that you need an idea to go along with it, or you need your product to have a personality, to have a point of view, to be different,
Yeah, I think
innovative?
the beauty of trying to think about it in a much more integrated and holistic way, because the consumer is doing this journey across all these different channels, if you will, is to think about integrated as well from an idea standpoint. So I think the search for a big idea didn't change. We're still looking and briefing the agency. In the end of the day, I need a very big idea, which you can even think, and that would be the ideal, it's media agnostic. It doesn't matter where it's gonna come from. It's gonna come from media or social, digital or social media or traditional TV or print or PR. It could be like so many different places that you see that big idea and then integrating the other channels. So I think the big idea has to be there, and then the beauty is how do you integrate that big idea in all the consumer decision journey. When the consumer heard about the brand, search about the brand, go to the store, see the brand, go and talk to their friends and share about the brand. So it's the whole loop, if you will. And then ideally you want them to come back to you. You're happy with the experience and what they saw and the product, etc. And then they're gonna be in that loop.
Lee Maicon, your company does a lot of research behind creating participating in that loop for brands. Starting with a big idea, or how do you blend analytics and research with the big idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the challenge for our team is beginning with the end in mind, thinking about how do you get to an idea, whether it's sort of creative or strategic, that actually has heart. So like the bacon barter idea has real heart. Like it's inherently something that people want to be.
Who's at that table, when you're coming up with those ideas on your team?
A lot of people. It's actually there's a couple things that you wind up challenging with. So the first part of the question is, it comes from, in that case, that was an idea that came from search data. Google's amazing because it's the sort of compendium of all of the hopes and dreams and aspirations of mankind, but at the same time, search data itself is kind of dull and really difficult to wade through. So it's this really interesting balance. All the way through to, we do a lot of online listening, so taking conversations on Twitter and Facebook and message boards and actually digging through it and trying to find ideas that have real heart. And so we have a lot of tools that help us do that. Some of it proprietary, some of it stuff that we license from Radiant 6 and Crimson Hexagon, as well as all the amazing tools that Google has in terms of understanding consumer behavior. And then so who sits at that table is a strategist, creative teams, media people when we have an integrated account, the community managers. I mean, there's a lot more people. I worked at more traditional agencies, and there are many fewer people, and it was a much more linear process. And so it was a lot more straightforward in terms of, you would write a brief, creators would go off and play pool for 2 weeks, probably here, and then come back, and then be like, oh, here are the ideas. But to be fair, it's a much more integrated process now. There are many more people involved. And so having a good editor, so there's a lot of collaboration and it's this very messy process, but at the end, there needs to be something of a dictatorship to actually think about how are you going to get to an idea that has heart.
So the agency steps in at that point, or there's leadership involved in terms of deciding and moving that process ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be, and then, it depends on the model. Sometimes we work with other agencies, so it can be a little complicated and egos start to get involved and you have to kind of cut them away to get to an idea that just works for the client. And so there's just a lot of parties involved, and so you really have to, there's a lot of work to get to, again, to have the end in mind and have an idea that has real heart.
We're always told to be uncomfortable.
Right.
So
That's a nice way of saying
yeah,
That's why our stuff wearing is personal.
so we are told that the more comfortable you get, the more likely you are not to fail, right? And we're always told to fail. So we have a ton of data, and to Lee's point, a lot of it is really hard to digest, and we don't always know what we're looking for in that data. We don't always know what the answer is. So we sort of make the most of what we can pull together and hope that at the end of the day, something really brilliant comes out of it. But I think we really do make a lot of mistakes, and we embrace that. And I don't know, you really do get used to being uncomfortable, and it starts to feel normal to you.
But I think that's, I'm sorry, but I think that's where that difference comes in, where of the translation is, we probably, and I don't know as much about for you, are in this place where we're being told that there may not be an exact right answer, but the right answer has something to do with progress, with moving things forward, with doing things differently, whereas there are other people, many of whom may be in this room, some of whom may be my clients, I won't admit to it, who are being told that their order of the day isn't necessarily progress as much as it is profitability or order or something different. And so that balance between order and progress is kind of, that's where the translation, I think, comes in.